3, 2, 1.
Here we go!
We're back, and this is the dancing that I do to that music that you hear or that you see behind the scenes. I'm doing this, and Dennis is like, it looks like you're swatting a fly, and I'm like,
you know what? You know what? It's like a type of break dancing that he does, and I call it the clock because he's like here, and then he's like there, and then he's like there, and then when he hits 12 o'clock, he goes dong. Literally, we're gonna call it the clock. That's going to be Andy's new dance move.
I could do that old school from what is it? My parents when they were growing up. Remember the old swim you'd see?
On
the dance show. Remember growing up?
Oh yeah, I do.
No, but what I'm saying is,
the 60s.
No, but I'm saying, remember growing up and it was either, I want to say almost Saturday mornings, but it was probably Saturday nights. But they had those silly ass dance shows. Remember?
You mean, are you talking like
American Bandstand, Soul Train,
American
Bandstand, stuff like that? Yeah.
And then they had the Dick Clark show. That was before that.
Hee Haw.
Hee Haw. That's a dance.
Hee Haw. No, Hee Haw's not a dance show.
Where you got your dancing from.
Hee Haw is not a dance show. But it's just the fact. I remember that was like the weekly.
It was.
It was that. Obviously,
I wanted to learn how to play banjo just like Roy Clark. And I never did.
But that was a show that my parents, it was whatever, say Wednesday night. Wednesday night, Hee Haw's on. Let's everybody sit down and watch Hee Haw.
Right. And we had our Dukes of Hazzard night.
And my dad would say, get up and turn it up or turn it down because I was the remote control.
Wow, you guys are old.
I know. Wow. Way to insult us right out of the gate. And we're back after just a 10-minute break. Like I told you, Stippling Vaughn says, I'm just going to sit here comfortably and enjoy the interview better than Binger after the oh god, yeah, that's true. I love what the judge said to him, but that's a whole different topic for a different time. We're going to get right to it. We have a wonderful guest today. I've known Bob for over 20 years, 25 years, something like that. Bob was a guy whose work I looked at and admired when I was a kid, looking at comics and wanting to get into the business. And yeah, I mean, he was definitely an inspiration.
And Bob's worked on some of my favorite books. Everybody here knows I'm a big X-Men fan. So, New Mutants, love the New Mutants. I mean, really, I've got a lot of Amazing Spider-Man. Mm-hmm. Yep, all excited. So
all right.
let's bring him in.
There we go. Well, hello, Bob.
Hello, how are you?
How's it going, man?
So, all right.
Yeah, so it has. Yeah, I think I know I've known you for at least 25 years, at least.
It's been a long time.
Yeah. So, which when I do that math in my head of my age, I'm like, damn, I don't even like to think about it. So, I mean,
you're old.
I know you're like old too. So,
I don't know if we met at a convention or up in the Marvel office. Maybe I don't remember.
It was probably a convention. I'm going to guess it was at a convention, maybe a MegaCon or something or a Heroes Con or something.
Yeah.
Something like that. Or, you know what it might have been? Actually, now that I think about it, it might have been in the early 90s when I was sharing a studio with John Beatty and through a phone call that way.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe.
Because I know we used to just, there was no internet and stuff back then. So we would, to pass time, call different people up that we knew and just shoot the shit. So that could be it. So we could thank John for it. So.
All right.
Yeah. So the big question that usually our viewers like to know, because some of them may have met you, some of them may have not, but we always like to find out the origin story. Who, not only your arch villains, but how did you get into comic books in the first place? And, and who was it with?
It's kind of an involved story. I never planned to be a comic book artist. I was not a big comic book fan.
Oh wow.
When I was a kid, I read Superman comics, and my sister read Archie comics, and so we would buy those and then swap. And so I read a lot of Archie and Superman. I liked all of the Harvey line of comics with the Wendy the Good Little Witch and Casper the
Hmm.
Ghost and all those. Um, I was much more into humor than dramatic superheroes, and my intent was, as a young kid, as a teenager, my intent was to work for Mad Magazine and be another Mort Drucker and do movie satires and TV satires, or maybe go out to California, work for Disney, do animation, um, or maybe have my own newspaper comic strip. Um, I read all the newspaper comics growing up, and I always wanted to have my own comic strip. But it never really, I had never even thought about working in comic books,
Wow.
until I was working at a grocery store in my late teens in high school, and one of the guys working at the grocery store with me, when he found out I could draw, he said, "Oh, you gotta be working for Marvel Comics." And I said, "Oh yeah." And all right, I figured I'll give that a try. And I was thinking of it, like a stepping stone onto something else. I'd just get in there and show everybody how great I was, and move on. And so, I went up. I got some samples together and went up to New York. Actually, sold my car to finance a trip up to New York. I'm from Tampa, Florida,
Okay.
and got some cash for my car, and went up. And I was afraid to go into Manhattan. Being from Florida, we assumed you'd get mugged and killed as soon as you stepped in Manhattan. So I landed in LaGuardia and got a room at the YMCA in Queens. It was like $7 a night or something, really cheap to stay at the Y. But it took me like a week to build up my courage just to go into Manhattan.
Oh
And
wow.
it was the summer of I think 1973, and so I went to the New York Comic Con and walked in there, and first person I saw basically was this guy who happened to be in my high school art class in Tampa, Pat Broderick.
No
And
way. Oh wait,
I
you guys went to high school together?
yeah, he was a year behind me. He's a year younger than me.
Oh wow.
So we weren't friends, because we were in different grades, but he was in the
Yeah.
same class, just kind of in a different corner or something. I don't know. I mean, we said hello at the time in class, and I looked at something he was drawing, and he probably looked at something I was drawing, but didn't really get to know each other. But then, there he is in New York, and I said, weren't you in Mrs. Nimmitz's art class? And he said, yeah. Who are you? I remember you. And so we started talking and became roommates.
Oh
Um,
wow.
so he was trying to get into the DC apprenticeship program that they had going at the time. And I said, well, I'll try to get into that too. And so he actually did get accepted, and I did not. I got rejected. And but being roommates, we were talking all the time and showing our artwork to each other. Pat kept saying, "You've got to go up and meet Neil Adams.
Hmm.
He's the guy that'll help you get your foot in the door." Because I was having no luck. I
Right.
went up to Marvel. They didn't even want to see my portfolio. They said, "Oh, we got enough people here." And went up to DC, and the art director at DC Comics, Joe Orlando, said, he looked at my samples. "Well, you put a lot of work into these, but you need to go back to school and learn how to draw."
Oh
And, and I had already been to art school. I'd been to majored in art in college for a year. Um, I figured I knew how to draw, so I was trying to figure out what was Joe Orlando seeing in my work or not seeing. So I just got some comics and started looking at them and studying them and trying to figure out what I didn't know, which I figured out was a lot. So, there's a lot more to drawing comics than just being able to draw, right?
oh
So
yeah.
anyway, Pat kept saying, "You got to go meet Neil Adams. You got to meet Neil Adams." I said, "Well, he's just another artist. How's he going to help me do anything?" But he talked me into it. I finally went up to continuity and met Neil and showed him my samples. And Neil said, "Well, what do you want?" And I said, "Anything that pays." Because I was down to my last $10 from the money of selling my car. I was ready to call my parents for bus money to go back to Tampa.
Oh, wow.
And he said, okay. So he picked up the phone and called John Verporten, who was the production manager at Marvel at the time. And he said, "John, I got a guy here with, well, some art potential, but a lot of lettering potential. Do you need anybody in the production department there?" And John said, yeah, we could use somebody. And so, Neil got me the job in the production department at Marvel just on his say so.
Wow.
So I started that next Monday, and they didn't even want to see my portfolio. They just said, "Here's your desk, get to work."
Wow.
And so one of the first things I had to do for my job was actually tape the page numbers onto the pages of art, onto the original.
Really?
That's what they used to do. It was, at the time the job was called Paste Up and Mechanicals.
Oh, yeah.
And so I was doing lettering corrections. I learned how to letter comic books from the two guys that did all of the title lettering at Marvel, Danny Crespi and Maury Kuramoto.
Yeah.
Great guys. They taught me the basics, and it was me and one other guy, grouchy guy with nobody liked him. I don't remember his name now. I can't think of his name, but he and I were the production department, and so I would do all these lettering corrections. And after a couple months, I got promoted up to doing art corrections, and then it was a great place to start because I was right there in the Marvel office. I could show my samples to all the editors. I got to meet everybody.
Sure.
And it was a small operation at that time. Stan's office was right around the corner. I was like 6 feet from John Romita's office. I was working right next to Frank Giacoia and Mike Esposito. They were working up in the office at that time. And Marie Severin was down the hall. It was just like a handful of people in the Marvel office at that time. And it was a real friendly atmosphere. I think at that time there was like a rotating editor-in-chief thing. Roy Thomas was there for a while. Marv Wolfman was editor-in-chief for a while. Kent Lynn Wein. I don't forget who else. So this was pre-Jim Shooter days.
Right.
But I got to meet all those editors, and finally, I kept showing my samples to him. Finally, one of them, Tony Isabella, gave me a shot at inking something. And then Marv Wolfman gave me a shot at doing this job for Crazy Magazine, a satire of the movie Westworld.
Oh, okay.
He saw that I liked doing humor stuff. So Westworld was my satire was actually my first published work for Crazy.
Oh, cool.
The job that Tony gave me never got published. That was inking Don Heck on some black and white magazine.
Oh, that's too bad.
But I did a few jobs for Crazy, but I was, still working in the production department, and Mike Esposito said, you can learn how to ink faster than you can learn how to pencil. I said, "Oh yeah, all right, I'll give that a shot." So I started doing background inking for Mike, for Klaus Janson, for Al Milgram, and then like a month or so later, I started getting my own ink work, and my inking career kind of took off.
Oh wow, I never knew that. That's really cool. The Westworld, I'm assuming you did pencils and inks on it, not just pencils.
Yeah, I did pencils and inks. But horrible job. I didn't know how to ink. I didn't really know how to pencil. I mean, there's cute things about it, but it's a pretty bad job.
Well, when did you do because some of the stuff I loved as a kid was in Crazy, and it was the Teen Hulk stuff you did. And didn't Marie Severin start that?
Marie Severin was the artist on that, and for whatever, I don't know if she got busy doing cover designs or whatever, but she asked me to take over for her on that. I think that was in later there, like 1981 or so.
Yeah.
That was several years later. So before that, I did like 3 or 4 movie satires.
Okay. I love that Teen Hulk stuff. I remember talking to you about it because I just,
Yeah,
you know, the way you,
that was some of my favorite work from my career. That was a lot of fun. Humor. That's what I
yeah.
really enjoyed doing, and I felt I was best at. So I kept doing that, for quite a while. I did like 5 or 6 episodes of Teen Hulk.
Yeah. No, I have those. Those are fantastic. And you were doing all the gray wash and everything on them and stuff. So that was, who wrote that? Do you remember?
I do. That was Jim Owsley,
It
who
was
later
Jim
changed
Owsley.
his
Okay.
name. What did he change his name to?
Christopher Priest?
Yes,
Yeah.
Christopher Priest. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know the story behind that name change, but his real name is Jim Owsley, right?
Yeah, I think he wanted to distance himself from what he was known for and kind
Oh,
of restart his career. Um, I don't know what he's doing now. I haven't seen him in a few years.
yeah. Well, how did so after that stuff, uh what was, I guess, do you remember the first comic book stuff you did for Marvel? And I do, one of the things when you brought up Pat Broderick that came to my mind was the few, because it was only a few Captain Marvel covers you inked over them. Because I
Oh, I
thought
inked an
the like
issue.
the and an issue, yeah. Because that, even to my kid eye, I guess you could say, when I bought those, and I bought them as back issues. I didn't start buying comics till '83, but then once I got in, I started going back. So I bought them as back issues. But man, it just, I know, I think the main guy that inked Pat was Bruce Patterson.
Right.
Your work just really stood out from Bruce's. And I was like, and once again, in my young eye, I was just like, wow, this is just, I don't know what it is, but this just looks so much cooler to me. And
Yeah,
like I
thanks.
said, and
I
that's
was
one of the full runs I own. Is I own all the Captain Marvels from 1 to 62. But yeah, those are just, I love that stuff. But what was the first book, if you remember, that you did?
Well, Pat, because we were roommates, I ended up inking a couple of his jobs, I think. But the first work I did as an inker, actually, they hired me and Pat both to add ink tones to, or wash tones to, some of the Filipino artists on the Kung Fu magazines. They
Oh,
were doing black and white stuff, and all we did was add Zipatone or ink wash to their inks on a few jobs early on when I was still in production. And then I started inking some of those jobs for the Kung Fu magazines myself. I inked Mike Vosberg
hmm.
and Keith Pollard. Uh, Keith Pollard might have been my first ink job on one of those. Inked a few issues over him. And then I started inking a lot of Sal Buscema, Son
Yeah.
of Satan.
Oh, cool.
That's when suddenly I got my first compliment from somebody up in the office. Oh, nice. And so I felt I was on the right track. I was using all brush pretty much. The inkers that I really admired were mostly brush inkers at that time. And then I got a desk up at Continuity. You could rent an office space up at Continuity then,
Mhm.
and became one of the Krusty Bunkers.
Oh,
Uh,
okay.
sure you guys know about the Krusty Bunkers, where just anybody pretty much that walked in the office of Continuity could be a Krusty Bunker.
Yeah.
Um, and so Neil looked at my stuff again, and he said, "We've got to wash out this style you've been inking in and get you in a new direction." And so he showed me some stuff that he had done, and Russ Heath was there doing his great inks in the office, and Dick Giordano, and so I started studying all that stuff, and that's when I I actually started to understand how to ink, and
Hmm.
what to try to do and what not to do. And so I started doing some better ink jobs. I did a Defenders issue over Sal Buscema. Almost everything I did over him was breakdowns. But I liked inking breakdowns. But that was one of my first best jobs. Was, I don't remember the number, what is Defenders.
Oh,
And
cool.
I don't know, I just did a bunch of fill-ins, inking here and there. And then I went over to DC, and because went over to DC, I got a $5 page raise,
Oh,
and
nice.
did some Legion of Superheroes for them, a couple of Aquaman.
Oh, yeah, you went the Aquaman. That was Don Newton, right?
Don Newton, fun stuff to ink. Yeah, really
I've
nice.
never seen. I'm a huge Don Newton fan. Huge. I have never seen his pencils before.
Beautiful.
I've tried
pencil.
doing a Google search. What was that?
Beautiful pencils, very, very finished. And again, you could just trace them pretty much, or you could take over a little bit. I was never much of a tracer, so I would always, try to put my style on top of it. But I think I did a good job I only did 2 issues over him.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was fun.
Oh, no, that was good looking stuff too. Were you still brushed back then on that stuff, or after Neil, did you kind of switch to a pen?
No, that was still brush. When did I go to pen? A couple years later, I got infatuated with Tom Palmer. He was inking Tomb of Dracula over Gene Colan.
Mm-hmm.
And I just loved the way his ink line looked. And, Neil used brush and pen, but he was primarily a pen inker, I think. And so I really liked what Neil was doing with inking. So I started trying to emulate those two and figure out what ink pens. I knew which ink pens Neil was using because I was right there in the studio, but I didn't really know what Tom was using, and he wouldn't tell you. It was kind of a secret.
Really?
So Joe Rubenstein and I were both always trying to figure out what kind of pen nib Tom Palmer was using. And we were always trying to ink, similar to what Tom was doing.
That's funny. Now we know where Terry Austin gets it from, not telling people.
Yeah. Yeah, Terry was up at Continuity when I was inking on the X-Men, I guess. John Byrne, probably.
Yeah. Oh, he was doing that up there, huh? That's cool.
Yeah. Yeah, he was using the same nib that Neil used, the Dot 170.
Oh, really?
Yeah, totally different result, but I think he might have filed his the point down a little bit. He used that. It was kind of a fairly stiff point.
Oh, okay.
And then I think he used a lot of rapidographs too.
Yeah. What was Dick using mostly at that time?
He was a brush inker.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he would occasionally ink with the Gillot 290, I think. Gosh, that's been so long.
Well, I know that Neil's talked about the 290 before because it's a real, and I've played with it. It's really flexible and stuff. So.
Oh, I love that point. That was an amazing pinpoint that they quit making, and then started making it again, but it was totally different. It wasn't good anymore. But the old Gillot 290 was a wonderful pinpoint.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I think I did some of my best ink work with that. It was so flexible, you could do really thick, thin line work with it.
Well, that's why I would look at some of Giordano's inking on like Mike Sikowski and stuff. And he's another guy that when he inks somebody, there's a handful of people that are inkers that when they ink somebody, I'll buy it because of it. Because it's like, oh, Bob inked this. And you can see the nice combination of styles, same with Rubenstein and Giordano and Palmer. And I would look at some of the inking Giordano did over like Mike Sikowski, and I knew he was a brush guy, but I'm looking at some of that and like the hair and stuff, and I'm going, no way, that looks like a pen.
That's probably brush. He could do amazing things with a brush. Rarely, very rarely inked with a pen.
Okay.
I remember, one or two jobs where he used a pen, almost always a brush for everything. He would do backgrounds with a brush, although he did use background assistants.
Right.
Joe and Klaus Jansen, and I don't know who else used to do backgrounds for him.
Right. That's cool.
So I'm kind of curious, Bob. So we know how you got into it, and you've worked on a lot of different characters over the years. Which one is your favorite one to draw, and is that different from your favorite one to ink?
Yeah, it's not that simple a question because there's different things I like about different things. So Spider-Man is fun to draw because he gets in interesting positions that Superman doesn't get into, right? Mm-hmm. So it's always fun to draw Spider-Man, and you can draw him more muscular, or you can draw him real skinny. You can draw him more cartoony. So I like doing Spider-Man. But my favorite series to draw was Superman.
Mm-hmm.
It's the one I read as a kid, and so when I got the chance to actually draw Superman, it was like an honor, to be working on Superman. I felt, even though it was late in my career, it was like 1991 before I ever got onto Superman. Almost 20 years after I started. But I really enjoyed the whole cast of Superman. Jimmy Olsen and Lois Lane and Perry White and all them, as much as drawing Superman. So I had a great time with that. Penciling. I was doing breakdowns, unfortunately, because that's what they wanted me to do. I've never been happy just doing breakdowns. That's like the storytelling end of it.
Right.
And I like, because I started as an inker, maybe I like the finish. The finish is really important to me. So I like to do either finished pencils or ink it myself. And I was, never fast enough to do it every month like that. So I inked a few issues, pencils and inks on Superman, but mostly penciling breakdowns. And then for inking, gosh, there's so many. My favorite artist to ink over was John Buscema's breakdowns, because it would give you this amazing structure. And then you could just do whatever you wanted with it because there was no blacks, no rendering. The drawing wasn't even finished, right? Really loose breakdowns.
And that was mostly, from what I remember, and hopefully maybe I'm off because then it always gives me something to look for. It was mostly Conan, right?
Yeah.
Like, did you ever ink anything over John that wasn't Conan? Oh. Oh no, Bob, can you hear us? You're frozen.
Yeah, you blanked out for a second there.
Oh,
I inked a lot of Tarzan covers over John.
Right.
A couple Thor covers, various things.
But the interior stuff was mostly Conan, wasn't it?
Pardon?
The interiors that you did over John was mostly Conan.
Yeah, I was just going to say I inked half of an issue of Nova over John's breakdowns. Joe Rubenstein inked the back half, I think, and I inked the front half.
Oh, now I got to go find that.
And I don't know what number it is. Did I ink anything else?
21.
Oh, I inked an issue of Tomb of Dracula, a little story that he did in the black and white magazine of Tomb of Dracula.
Oh, cool. Is that gray toned as well, or was it just black and white?
That was tones, black and white. After this comic series ended, they started up the black and white magazine, so we could use tones in an ink wash, and I did a lot of airbrush on it. I think that was issue number 5, if you want to look it up. Might be the only other time I did an interior job over him. I'm not sure.
Oh.
Yeah, it was Nova 21.
Yep, right there, Nova 21. Well, now I have to go buy it because I love finding new stuff. Bob, I'm not kidding. Dennis will tell you, I will find that book because I love a lot of what I buy now is older stuff just because the art, you know.
Well, you can compare what Joe did on it and what I did on it. You know, our styles are in the same school, kind of that Neil Adams, Dick Giordano school, but I think we ink pretty differently.
I do too. No, like I said, growing up, I could see a distinct difference between both of you guys. I could see that it was from the same school, like you said, but you know, it's how you interpret things and whatnot. But I'm glad that the other half was inked by Joe, and it wasn't. I can think of names, but I'm not going to throw any names out. But you know, other than Joe Blow had to ink the other half, and I'd be like, oh well, at least I have half the book to look at. Now I've got the whole thing. So
yeah, unfortunately, John had a lot of inkers who weren't that good, that did not do well on his pencils. You know, his breakdowns, you gotta know what you're doing to ink those breakdowns. And
yeah,
actually my first color comic ink job was over John Buscema breakdowns. I was up at Continuity. God, when was that? I don't think I was still working in production. And this job came in that they needed an inker for, and they were going to give it to Vince Coletta, but he was out of town. He couldn't. And
uh-oh. I don't know if it can't be me.
No, you blanked out again. Are you there now?
Yep, I'm here.
Yep. What are you
Go
saying?
ahead.
So it's Kazar number 7, if you want to look it up. My first color comic ink job.
And that was over John?
So I was there in the office, said, oh, John, I'll do it. I'll ink that job. And, you know, John was not at all confident in me being able to ink John Buscema's breakdowns. And he said, well, you know, it's kind of a rush job, and you've never inked breakdowns before, and I don't know. And I begged for it, and he gave it to me because he couldn't find anybody else. And so I had to do it in about 2 weeks, though. And so I got Joe Rubenstein to tighten up some of the drawing for me. And I got Klaus Janson to ink a couple pages, and Neil inked some heads and a couple things. It turned into kind of like a crusty bunker job, even though it wasn't credited that way. And it's a horrible job. I had no idea how to ink his breakdowns. It's so bad.
It's a horrible job that I'm writing down so I can find it.
Kazar number 7. I used Zipatone for the rain. Horrible.
For rain? Now I got to see it.
Yeah, the only good pages in that job are Klaus's 2 pages.
Oh, sure.
Joe Bernardo's asking, what was it like to work with John Byrne?
Well, you know, I met John early on, really enjoyed his earliest work. There was some, I think it was a Marvel team-up job that he penciled. Thor, maybe. I don't remember, but I think it was inked by Tony DeZuniga, maybe.
Oh, I think it was Thor. As soon as you said Thor, I thought of this big splash or something John did that had a kind of a Neil vibe. I think it was Tony. It
was a fun job. I really liked it a lot. But anyway, I met him at a con. I inked a X-Men sketch over him at a convention down in Miami, I think. And then the first time I inked him was on Marvel Team Up 100, I believe. It was a backup story with Storm and Black Panther.
Oh, cool.
And I really enjoyed inking it. It was just, I think, 10 pages. Inked a cover or 2 over him. I did a Spider-Man cover that I sell prints of. It turned out pretty nice, and everybody likes that cover. Maybe it's Spider-Man 189, Amazing Spider-Man 189, I think. And then I inked him on New Mutants
75.
75. Okay.
I believe it's 75. Was that over? Did he do breakdowns or full pencils?
No, that was breakdowns.
That's what I thought. Okay.
really cartoony breakdowns, so I kind of inked it in a cartoony style.
Oh, okay.
Instead of trying to, just redraw his drawing, which is what I would have had to do to make it more realistic. And I think I read somewhere, Comics Journal somewhere, got some criticism for my inking on that job because it didn't look like John Byrne. But I mean, it was loose breakdowns in a cartoony style. It wasn't the way he was drawing the X-Men.
Huh. Yeah, I mean, I know I've seen his breakdowns before. It's weird because just the evolution of Byrne. I mean, that's a whole nother topic, from then to now. I mean, kind of a tangent, but have you seen the fan fiction X-Men stuff he's drawing? Have you seen any of that, or?
No, I haven't seen it. I've heard about it. I haven't seen it.
He's on issue 28. Issue 28. He has drawn 27 issues and 3 pages of issue 28.
So what? Marvel's letting him use the X-Men characters?
He's not doing anything with it. He's just drawing it. He's writing
he's not
it.
Publishing it.
Nobody.
He's a nut.
That's the thing. He's just drawing it. He sells the originals. And the only reason I know this is because of Facebook. He sells the originals, and then some people will keep the originals in pencil, and then some will, I think Rubenstein's inked a couple of pages. Whoever bought a page or two was like, hey, would you ink this? I know Scott Williams, I think, inked a 2-page spread over, from one of the issues. So he's just doing it. All I know is from what I've read online, I think he and Marvel talked and they just couldn't come to an agreement. And that was that. But he's still doing it. It's his version of X-Men after issue 137, and Jean Grey never dies.
Well, he sells his originals for a lot of money, so he can afford to do that. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, the stuff's I blue lined a whole page just for fun, because I ink Byrne here and there just on maybe 6 or 7 pages total, in my career helping out. I remember I was helping out John Beatty on a Spider-Man job and inked some pages and stuff. But, his stuff, it's cool because it's all there, but you have to ink it, But yeah, just the fact that he's not, as far as I know, he's not doing any work for IDW. He's just doing this.
Yeah, I think he finished off his Star Trek stuff.
So
yeah, he was fun to ink. I enjoyed inking him.
Yeah. So how did New Mutants come about? The whole creation of that with Claremont and stuff.
Well, I had worked my actually first superhero penciling job was Marvel Team Up. I should know this, 76. Anyway, Chris wrote the story and I penciled it. Finally convinced the editors at Marvel that I could draw comics, and they gave me a shot at drawing a fill-in of Marvel Team Up. And then I did maybe a couple other things with Chris, fill-ins. And then they needed a fill-in on X-Men 151. Jim Sherman had started it and abandoned it for whatever reason. And he had done layouts on a few pages and finished pencils on like 2 or 3 pages. And so they needed somebody to finish penciling the book. And then Rubenstein was inking it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I penciled that issue, and I think I inked the last 2 pages myself. And then, so they needed somebody on the next issue as well. And so I inked X-Men 152. I penciled X-Men 152 and Rubenstein inked that issue. And they offered me the job of penciling the X-Men every month.
Oh.
And I said, great. I can't wait. And then they said, or we're going to do this spinoff title. We hadn't got a name for it yet, but it's going to be a younger group of mutants and a little more multicultural. And you could be the co-creator on that book. And I said, well, I kind of want to draw the X-Men, really. It was a tough choice, because I didn't know if the New Mutants was going to totally tank and, then I'd be out of a job in a couple weeks or a couple months
Sure.
rather, or if it was going to take off and be a success. Whereas the X-Men, one of their top titles, it would have been great to draw the X-Men every month. So I really, was really hesitant to take the New Mutants. But I said, well, when am I going to get another chance to be a co-creator on a new series? And it sounds like it has potential. So I, kind of reluctantly chose New Mutants over the X-Men.
Wow. So looking back, with hindsight being 2020, do you take New Mutants or do you stick with X-Men?
No, it was the right choice. That's what I'm best known for now is co-creating New Mutants. And, who knows what it would have been like to draw the X-Men instead. Maybe I would have drawn it for 10 years or maybe just a few issues. Who knows? It's hard to say.
Now, did what came out first? The graphic novel came out first, right?
That's how they launched it. It was going to be just a regular comic, and I started penciling it as a regular comic, just did the first few pages, and then the graphic novel line was starting up, and they were looking for projects to turn into graphic novels. And so they said, hey, let's make it a graphic novel. I said, yeah, great, that'll be fun. But as a comic book, it wasn't on the schedule yet, and I was going to have all the time in the world to put my very best work into doing the first issue. And when it turned into a graphic novel, suddenly it was twice as many pages and it was behind schedule. And so there we go. We keep jumping out for a few seconds.
That's
so
okay.
On top of that, I happened to be getting married at the same time.
Oh, wow.
And so they were going to, because it was a rush job, they were going to give the inks to somebody else. And I said, oh, no, it's a graphic novel. It's the first issue of this new series. You got to let me ink it. So reluctantly, they said, well, all right, you can ink it, but you got to get it in, by this date or whatever. And so I ended up having to ink it while I was on my honeymoon.
Oh, no way.
Wow. That's
and now here's the real question. Where was that honeymoon at?
Luckily,
oh, you broke up.
Florida on Anna Maria Island.
Oh, yeah.
And so she let us stay at her beach house. So it was like a month-long honeymoon.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So it wasn't like, it wasn't like I didn't have a honeymoon. We had plenty of time together, but I was working while my wife was out enjoying the beach.
Right. No, I hear you. Stippling Vaughn says your book on inking is awesome. I can vouch for that because you gave me a copy when you first put it out, that book, and I just love seeing the before after. I mean, seeing the breakdowns and then even the pencils. One of the fun jobs, I don't know how fun it was for you, but as a fan was, the original Mike Zeck Craven stuff was great. But then when you did I think it was just a one-shot square bound, but it was kind of more, and you could say the imagey style. I thought that was a fun job. I don't know if you had fun doing that. Were you directed to ink it that way, or what was the deal with that?
No, that came out in the 90s, and all the editors were wanting stuff that looked like the image style. And it got to the point where it was getting a little harder to get ink jobs if you didn't work in that style.
Mm-hmm.
So I was just trying to show them that I could do something similar. Mike did breakdowns on that. Was called The Soul of the Hunter. Mike did breakdowns on it and wasn't expecting me to ink it like that. I don't know if he liked it. But I just decided I'm going to do something different on this, and I had a lot of fun with it. I enjoyed it.
So Mike wasn't expecting it. Did you, before you started then, did you say anything like to the editor, like, I think I'm going to do this, or was it a shock to their system too?
I imagine they were shocked too. I don't remember who the editor was on it. But you know, my whole career, there wasn't a lot of communication with the editors and the pencilers. They would just give me a job and I would do it and turn it in, and they would say thanks, and you know, that was pretty much it. Sometimes they would give you another job, sometimes they wouldn't. Very little feedback my whole career, really. So I don't know what the editors thought of that inking. Didn't really talk to Mike about it afterwards much, except he told me he was surprised to see it in that style. But he didn't say he didn't like it, but I don't know really if he liked it or not.
So Joe Bernardo wants to know who your favorite New Mutant is that you created.
Well, you know, those are my kids, so it's hard to just say I love one more than another one.
But secretly, you do.
I mean, Dennis has 2 kids. He tells me privately which one he likes out of the 2.
It all depends on which day of the week.
The best, as far as which one I enjoy drawing the most, is probably Danny Moonstar.
I was going to say, if you say Sunspot, I'm going to be like, well, seriously, he's a silhouette. Come on.
No, I like drawing Danny Moonstar. I enjoy drawing Cannonball because I was able to make him a little more cartoony looking, you know, with the big ears and kind of lanky and not your average superhero looking guy.
Mm-hmm.
And then I always thought Rain was kind of cute, so she was fun to draw. So Sunspot was probably my least fun to draw, although of course I like a lot of things about him. He was supposed to, when I designed him, he was supposed to be a little guy, and the way Chris had him in mind was there we go again. So after I left the book, another artist came on. They started making him taller and same height as Cannonball, and he got lighter and lighter skin. It's a mess when other people take over, you know.
I'll have to go back and look at that. I never really paid that much attention. I have the graphic novel and some of the issues, but I'll have to go back and look at that.
You can come over and borrow any.
I can look at any because he has them all.
Yeah, so I designed them to look like individuals. You know, I wanted to look like certain, like they were somebody, not just another stereotypical superhero.
Right. Oh yeah, no, totally. I mean, they all definitely had distinct personalities, and I think, you know, kind of like you said, you like the cartoonier stuff more, and that's what you envisioned doing before you got into comics, and you know, pulling that influence in to creating those characters definitely helps, instead of, you know, going, well, this is how you learn how to draw a head, so I'll just change the hairstyle. You know what I mean?
That's what a lot of artists used to do at the time. They would just color the hair differently to have a different character, you know, give them wavy hair instead of curly hair, but it was the same face all the time.
Right. So I think that's.
But I came out of studying Mort Drucker, you know, doing caricatures. So I was all about all these different facial features. Did
you ever get a chance to meet Mort?
No, I've heard was a wonderful man. I wrote him a fan letter, the only fan letter I ever wrote to anybody when I was, I don't know, a young teenager. And he wrote back to me a very nice letter. You know, just general stuff. I just basically told him I thought he was God, and he came back and said, "Oh, thanks very much." You know.
Well, you know, that's funny, Bob. That's how I met Dennis. He wrote me a fan letter, and then I responded, and then I saw him stalking me outside my house, and I was like, "Well, that turned dark really fast."
Wow.
When you were doing Superman, because I have some of those. Holy shnikes, Bob McLeod, our buddy Michael says.
Hello.
That's right. I do remember you did the Superman. One of the issues is the splash page where he revealed himself to Lois, if I remember right.
Yeah, what an honor! Like I was saying, I mean, of all the issues to be able to draw, and there were 3 Superman titles at the time. Jerry Ordway, Dan Jurgens were inking the other 2. And Jerry's actually the guy that got me the job on Superman. I was inking Dale Keown over at Marvel on the Hulk.
Oh,
and Jerry came up to the office when I happened to be there turning in some pages. And he said, I always liked your penciling. Why don't you do more penciling? And I said, I don't know. I just kind of take what comes along, and having a good time inking Dale here. And he said, well, we need a penciler on one of the Superman titles. Would you be interested? And I said, Superman? Well, sure. So I went over and talked to Mike Carlin, the editor on Superman, and ended up, dropping Dale to start penciling on Superman. And then they gave me that issue to draw, and I was stunned that they picked me, because really you would think they would give it to Jerry. I'm not sure why they didn't. But anyway, yeah, that was a great issue, and I got to pencil and ink that one myself.
One of my favorite ones you did is the one with Batman guest starred in it. Was that 2 issues or 1? Do you remember?
What was the question?
When one of my favorite was the issue with Batman, but I can't remember if it was 2 issues or 1 that he was in. Do you?
It was just 1, issue 654, my second issue.
Okay.
My first time drawing Batman ever, and maybe my last. I don't think.
And that was inked by Brett. I think that was inked by Brett, wasn't it?
Yes.
So you haven't been inked by many guys, I assume. Like, I can think of Brett and I can think of Joe. Who else has inked you?
I was so lucky to get some top inkers, and I never was happy with any of them. I mean, Brett and Joe did great work over me, but it wasn't my inking, and I always just wanted to ink myself. But Tom Palmer inked me on Star Wars, and Tom's my favorite inker.
Was that breakdowns though?
I was doing breakdowns, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Because he was the inker before I came on the book, and he wanted a breakdown penciler. He didn't want me to do finished pencils.
Right. That's right. I totally forgot about that.
I'm blanking. I did an issue of Team Superman. Mark Pennington inked that issue, and I thought he did a good job. And then Denny Rodier took over on Superman later on from Brett. After I inked I did 3 issues, and then Denny Rodier started inking me on Superman.
Oh, that's cool. So I'm assuming, like a lot of guys that, from your era or whatever, you sold most of your artwork.
Yeah, let's not get into that.
Okay.
Yeah, we didn't know the art was going to go up in value the way it did, and we needed the money. The page rates were low, and there wasn't this big con circuit at the time, so we kind of really needed to add to our income by selling our original artwork. And we just always figured, well, I'll be doing more. There's always going to be more stuff coming in.
Right.
It's not that big a deal. So yeah, I hung on to mostly the work that I penciled and inked, and then I would sell the originals that I only did inking on.
So does that mean you still actually have pages from that Superman issue where he reveals himself?
I've got that whole issue. Yeah.
Oh, see, that's awesome.
That's cool.
That's really cool. Is there any penciler that you never inked?
I hate to just sell one page out of that issue. The whole issue.
Exactly. No, I agree. Is there any penciler you never got to ink that you wanted to?
I inked so many different pencilers. I was very lucky. I was considered one of the top inkers, so I got to ink so many different people. I mean, you know, the guy that started me in the business, Neil Adams. I've never inked Neil.
I was going to ask if you ever just like a face here or nothing, huh?
I did one time. He did a little tiny Superman and tiny Batman, really rough little sketches on a napkin or something that somebody had me ink back in the late 70s. And I didn't do that good a job on it because I was still kind of improving my inking. But I've never really inked Neil. But other than that, I think I got to ink pretty much everybody that I wanted to. Oh, Jim Aparo.
Oh, that would have been cool.
He was one of my favorites, and I did one ink job over him where he was just inking some pages, and then some other penciler was doing other pages, and I was inking both of them. But it was late in his career, you know, and he did his, like most of us, he did his best stuff earlier. Right. And, but, you know, I pretty much got to ink everybody.
What about this guy? This guy's asking, Steve Ditko.
You know, I was never a Ditko fan. I know that's sacrilege to say.
Now, you're a good company with me. I appreciate, obviously, what Steve contributed. And his art has grown on me over the years. But, you know, when I think Spider-Man for that time period, I just think John Sr.
Yeah, so. I mean, I appreciate Ditko's work. I can see the good things about it. It's just not what I'm interested in, and
sure
never came along a chance for me to ink him.
Yeah. Joe was asking, how did you come up with Magic being Colossus's sister?
That wasn't me. You know, Chris came up with Ileana being Colossus's sister and put her in one of the early issues of the New Mutants as Ileana, not as Magic. And I left the book before she started being Magic.
Oh.
I think that was Tom Mandrake, maybe, who was on the book when she appeared.
Right. So if there was one book that was like, that's the one that I'm like most proud of, is there one that you can think of that you worked on? You know, pencil wise?
I mean, obviously that Superman issue where he reveals that he's Superman. And then I did a miniseries of Spider-Man and the Punisher where I penciled and inked most of that. I got, you know, deadline at the end. They had to say, okay, we need the pages, Bob. And I didn't have time. So I got Lee Weeks to pencil the second half of the third issue. But I penciled and inked 2 issues and inked the third one and penciled half the third one. And I think that's one of my best jobs.
Oh, here's a good question. And I don't actually know the answer either. Have you ever inked George Perez?
Are you kidding? I've inked a lot of George Perez.
Wait, now I'm trying to remember on what? Because
Well, I'll tell you, I think I was the George's first inker when he started at Marvel. I inked a job over George on the Sons of the Tiger in the black and white Kung Fu magazines.
There you go. Is that the White Tiger character, or was in that stuff?
I think so. But you know, he started out as an assistant to Rich Buckler, I think.
Yeah.
And this was 1974, maybe. I had just started inking. He had just started penciling. And I looked at that stuff and I said, boy, this is the worst penciler I've ever seen. It was so bad. Every background had the same stone walls because it's the only background he knew how to draw, it seemed like. And then he got so good after that. So he kept just getting better and better.
Yeah.
But he's like, you know, most of us, he started out pretty rough. But then I inked a lot of covers over him. And then at DC, I inked the Teen Titans, the New Titans, they were called.
Oh, okay.
Did a lot of issues over him on that. I inked Wonder Woman over him.
Oh. Well, that's a big gap in my memory then. What about somebody's asking, and I think I know the answer to this, but Joe Staton?
Never inked Joe Staton.
Yeah, I didn't think so. That's really cool. So wait, going back to the art that you keep, because you said you keep art that you pencil and inked, New Mutants graphic novel then? Or was that at a time where you were selling stuff?
That was at the time when I was selling stuff. I sold that for some magic beans or something. I got almost nothing for that. You know, it's pathetic how little I sold the New Mutant graphic novel pages for.
Yeah, but it's like you said, nobody knew. I mean, you know, I was lucky getting, you know, starting in 91 when I did and having Joe Kubert as a teacher, and he would constantly tell us, don't sell your stuff. Don't sell your stuff. So like for the first 4 or 5 years in the business, I did sell my stuff, but around 95 or 96, I was like, nah. And I've just been holding on to it unless somebody else inked it. You know, everything else I hold on to. So, but
yeah, you know, I did the first annual New Mutants annual, pencils and inks on that, and had that for decades. And I just sold the whole book of that to somebody this past year.
Oh, cool. Well, congratulations.
So I got a decent price for it.
Sure.
But it'll probably go up, and then I'll be sorry I sold it too. You know, who knows?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've sold art that I've bought of another artist. I bought it and then sold it. And then a few years after that, see it on the market and go, are you kidding me? So
yeah, very sore subject. Let's not talk about that. And
no.
Andy, I've got company coming over for dinner at 6:30.
No, we're
so
good.
I can't really stick around much longer.
I was about to say unless Dennis has anything else, I was going to say we can wrap it up. So we usually go for an hour. So
yeah, perfect timing.
Yeah.
All right. Well, it's been fun. I enjoyed talking to you guys, and hope you enjoyed it as well.
We did. For everybody watching, I have Bob's website. Make sure it should be in the description.
Okay.
Bob's website should be in the description below. So you can go there. And I did a video on the hows and whys of comic books that Bob did. It's there, right? Yep. And his inking book, I believe, is available there as well, among other things. So if you want to get a hold of Bob, just click the link in the description below. And yeah, thanks for joining, Bob. Really appreciate it. And hopefully I'll see you at a con sometime soon.
I'm sure you will. All right. Nice talking to you guys.
Yep.
Take care, Bob. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Well, guys, there you go. That was Bob McLeod. I'm so glad he was able to join us. Definitely go to his site. Thank you for posting that there, Hyperkaiju, and we posted it too. Check out his stuff. He's got, like I said, the book where he shows what an inker really does for sale, and he also has the book, The Hows and Whys of Comic Book Art. He is a wealth of knowledge. He's a real nice guy, as you can see.
Very laid back. He really
he's really laid back. Well, you know, he's from that time where, you know, who knows? You never know. I'm just saying. So as soon as he told me that he knew Pat and all that, I know Pat likes to partake. So there you go. Guys, we will see you next week. Until then, thank you for joining us. We are going to grab some food, and I think we'll leave you with what we like to title The Fight. Bye, everybody.
Live long and prosper.